Can you tell me just a little bit of kind of the role that you play in designing the visuals and the look for this movie as the set director? What are some of like the main priorities and responsibilities that you're tackling in this role when you're working on the film?
So I work very closely with Susie, and then Susie will have talked to Emerald in the very early stages, and then Susie and I will sit down and we start talking through things, like it's big at that point, and then slowly you just start drilling into each set, and then just but trying to keep this overall feeling for the whole look, which is what Susie does so brilliantly. And then I sort of drill into the detail of all the sets, like Isabella's bedroom and from the Grange to the Heights. And then we slowly start, get it, I go out and I start looking for the things that I think that Susie and Emerald will like and pulling them all together. And then I sieve it, and then Susie sieves it before we show it to Emerald. Yeah. And we play around. But I'm a magpie and Emerald is too. So she could never quite walk past the door of the set tech without coming in going, "What's that? What's that? Oh, I love that." Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I gotta say, there's so many like specific scenes and moments in this movie that I just love. Like seeing it in the theater for the first time was just like jaw-dropping kind of just because there's so much that this movie offers. I want to ask specifically about like the skin room that we see at the very end because that really, I think that's where my mind was blown the most because I was just like, I don't even know how you go about creating something like that. So, what was kind of the process of making that, and what did you want to convey to the audience?
Well, I think that was like Susie just that room when we read it, it talked about her freckles. And in the beginning, we were looking at just maybe printing freckles on the fabric and printing it on the carpet and just making it a sort of freckle room. And then Susie went one further with the latex. And then it started to develop, and then it was like, oh, can we get a photo of Margot Robbie's, her veins? And then yes, and then we talked to our great graphic designer, Franny Bennett, and she started, doing prints of it. And then Susie was like, can you get some really wide latex, which we couldn't, but we managed to persuade them to print it a lot wider, and then, padding the fabric print of Margot's skin and then laying the latex over the top and just working into it. And then Susie made me stick little hairs on some of the moles.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then I know, and then with the curtains, we actually had like fake hair as the sort of like the fringing all the way down, and it's sort of like Palomino pony. And then Emerald was like, "Oh no, too much." And I love it when she tells us too much because she's always pushing us, and you're like, "Oh, really too much." So then we ended up plaiting the hair all the way down the on all the drapes as well, and using plaits as tie backs. So it's sort of like Cathy's hair as well, gone Rapunzel.
Sure.
And that, yeah,
Yeah, totally, totally. And like I said, there's so many just like specific things I love, but also just like the overall look of the movie, it conveys such a feeling. So I'm kind of curious, like what's the starting point for when you start working on this? I mean, you're talking to Emerald, you're talking to Susie and everyone else for how you want the movie to look and feel. But like what are some of the most important aspects for the set and just the visuals that you really want to make sure gets conveyed to the audience?
yeah. I mean, we had this incredible moment really, really early on when Emerald came into the office and said, "Oh, Jacqueline Duran and is going to just talk through the costumes where we're at, and Sean's coming in as well, hair and makeup. Will you two come in?" So there was five of us sitting in Emerald's office very early on, and Jacqueline had put up all her ideas, and there was like, things like from Rapunzel and folk tales and things that I hadn't really thought of, and just this switch went off in my head, like, okay, it's more like a fairy tale in a way, and that was quite a big open door for me moment. And then just that collaboration with Jacqueline and Sean, with us in, the art department and set deck, was really, really, really fantastic. Really set us on our way, I think, from that moment on. It was great. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering if is it daunting at all to like tackle this kind of project? I mean, you've worked on movies in the past that I absolutely love and think they're gorgeous looking, but Wuthering Heights is just like such a well-known book that so many people have read, like either in school or
Mm,
just for pleasure.
yeah.
Like I feel like everyone's kind of read it in their lifetime. So do you feel like any kind of added pressure knowing that like the source material is so well known and that like audiences are going to go in with kind of a picture in their mind of what they expect this to look like?
I mean, I've got so much faith and trust in Emerald, and and I'm a massive Emily Bronte fan. I was saying, like, my dad brought a house up in North Wales, a rectory, because he reminded him of, Wuthering Heights and the Brontes. So I read the book at 14 as well, and I understand that, some people did get upset by it, but I really felt like that spirit of Emily Bronte was there with Emerald's spirit too. And I loved the thought of making a film through your eyes of being 14 when you read it. And I just thought, yeah, like it's like with Ingmar Bergman when he did Cries and Whispers, like that was just an idea he had in like the 1970s, but that film was set in like the 19th century, and there's a release as well by making a film that's so kind of original and just creating its own world that's super exciting.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. One thing I was really struck by when I saw the movie for the first time is just how different looking and different feeling like the Wuthering Heights estate is from like Edgar's mansion estate.
Mm.
I mean, Wuthering Heights, you capture the feeling so well where it's so lonely and like desolate at times when Edgar's home feels like somewhere like I would actually kind of want to live. Like it's so full of life at other moments. So can you talk about like how you went about designing these spaces and these sets to make them feel so different from each other? Like, was that hard to do two kind of complete opposites like that?
I think it was really important to have like Wuthering Heights, and with both those houses, like, you know, we have a big backstory in our mind, and Susie wanted that feeling with Wuthering Heights that that family have worked the land, the Earnshaws, for hundreds of years, and the land was really important to them, that they were completely impoverished, and that, it had been a working farm, but just how harsh it was, as it is, incredibly harsh working, those farms up in Yorkshire. And then I think that, the combination of the little jewellery box of the Grange, which is also suffocating. But I love that scene when Cathy is first climbing over the wall and then she falls back down and Edgar finds her. To me, it was just like an MGM classic kind of, movie, from the 50s. That, I just love that scene where she just lands with a like that. Yeah. And she sees both worlds. She's in the heath, but she's just seen something, a treasure box.